people that learn their whole life low lishma, they're not getting to lishma. It's because they're learning a low lishma without any kavanah. They're not even learning to have the ratzon to eventually learn lishma.
But they're not aware.
They're just not
lack of awareness.
So that subtle change is all the difference. People don't usually have more kavanas. That's how it goes. And Torah mitzvahs, Chassidus is all based on these little kavanas. That changes everything. Everybody's doing the things already. They're davening, they learn, they're doing it already. Just a little bit of a change. I'm not telling you when to have the best kavanah. Just have the ratzon. At some point, you have a higher kavanah. Even that. You have to do it every single time. But I get thrown off by that. I feel like that's it's so ragil almost. I don't know. That's true. Anyway, first of all, people aren't saying that we're learning, right? How much more? Well, it should be. For the mitzvah, for learners. So those people who say the tefillah before, right? People didn't come to the Gemara. They've added. No, it's not this one. No, so it's another caveat. This is a different shloch. What is it? It's like it's remember like have it shloch kodesh. He wrote no more kadesh in Talmud. It's the sheniach kishbia. It's the shloch. Well, it's comes from the shloch. So Kodesh says, he says you should say. He says, I just said it. Okay, so he's right. This is his own comment. Schwartz says this also. That is just to say, he holech achshav lo Torah kidei david deber or the bori. But the Shlach Kodesh says, "Kini rotza lilmod yishin yain tamid lidei ma'isa lidei midas asher lidei Torah v'shein yichud kishuvah." Shlach Kodesh says that so you're supposed to say every day before you say it. Because you're supposed to have the shein yichud kishuvah. Changes the whole thing. Because that itself, you have an ounce of kavanah, that becomes as kavanah b'rotzim. Even it's not really what you see all these words. After you have that on your money, it's okay. Go again, that's easy to put Alright, so
See you, brother.
That's just using
We'll see here.
our
Lovely work. See you soon.
Right about this. Right.
Hey, brother. Tissue control.
So just let me know with the app.
We should have stuck to our guns and brought it downstairs last week.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's all right. And not only that, it's not enough room to stand in it. Let's see when we're gonna take some pictures. Some photos.
looking for a minute. I'm not ready for that.
It's already
You're here for
Yeah, it's good. Good, thank you. Yeah. It's good enough to go to the mikveh first. It gets me up. To wake up.
Friday or every day?
Friday.
Friday.
I used to go every day. I wasn't every day for a long time. 5. After the trip. No, it was good.
Oh, yeah?
Too much sleep.
Safe, I want to check it. Sorry. On page Ayin Reish, Byam darkecha, if hey, the hachshiv es masha margish, hachshiv es masha margish. Yesh li zoher mimoikesh hayetzer. We already spoke a little bit about this, but one has to be careful. Comes to the Yitzhar, we're talking about this hargosha, a feeling, a sense of elikus that is experienced by different people in different ways. There's a makif, there's a pnimi. That's what we've been talking about the past few weeks. And one has to be careful that the Yitzhar wants, like in every other area of Avodah, the Yitzhar wants a person to be mezalzel, to disregard, and to feel that he hasn't really accomplished anything, to disregard anything, even if it's a tiny little hergish of elikus. The truth is that it's very, very chashuv. But the Yitzhar wants a person to be mezalzel b'mesha zacha, not to be machshav it. The truth is that a person has to be careful to be machshav, to value liaker, kol hagosha filo kala. Even if it's a tiny little hagosha of something in Avodas Hashem, in one's connection to Hakadosh Baruch Hu, to be machshav that, not to look at it as something which is not chashuv. Good tough ayin gimel.
Sometimes you're sitting in a room and it's some sort of a kumzitz or hilula or whatever it is, or some part during davening, it could be Yom De'Rabba, any regular day, and you look around you, it seems to you that everybody except you is like in a place of dveikus for Hashem. First of all, it's not true. Just people have their eyes closed and they're shuckling. It doesn't mean that they're necessarily in a place of dveikus for Hashem. They want to be. They're trying to be just like you. And you're disappointed because you wanted to feel something on imke libo, especially if it's an Eis Rotzen, if it's a time, a very, very special time, and you want to feel something, and you look and you don't feel that much. Ad hisrakshus v'shtapchus hanefesh, you feel that you should be that this is a time that you should be in a place of hishtapchus hanefesh, really v'hargosha b'chusim mizeh v'koshke hargosha kala ein nachshavos beinav. Therefore, if you're not feeling much, it's just maybe even a little feeling or not at all, but you're not machshav a little feeling. Especially this is with a person who in the past has had strong hargoshes. As I lios shahargoshes ketanos lo yiu chashuvos beinav. It's very possible that little hargoshes are not going to be important to him. It's not going to be machshav. Avzutos gadol, this is a big mistake. Yitzarach ladas laharo kol davar katan shezachim. In general, we've been seeing this throughout the Sefer, that in one's avodas Hashem, a person should value even in the smallest of a cotton. To be besimcha. There are many reasons why he would not be having a strong hagosha at this time, and he should not be concerned or think about that. Just to be grateful that this came from Hashemayim. Even a tiny little ha'or, it's part of your avodas Hashem. Any mashu is very, very valuable. When a person is grateful, is besimcha with a little bit that he has, back inside. And also, the person feels a tanug, feels a tremendous tanug, pleasure, after he does something good. Now, that could be anything. When the person is feeling very, very good. So there are certain svarim that when you look at this svarim, they will tell you to be suspect of these feelings. That these feelings are really just about self-satisfaction and about your ego and so on. And that's not the mahalach of the Baal Shem HaKadosh and Talmidei Baal Shem, to not only to disregard but to even be suspicious, and to look at that feeling of accomplishment or of that oneg, that simcha that comes after you did a person a favor, after you had a good davening, after you did a mitzvah, where you've seen there are some that say that's all about the ego and it's about the self. It has nothing to do with Hashem. The Sfarim HaKadoshim do not go with that mahalach at all. These are feelings that one should cherish, not only to analyze and to dissect and to reject, but to cherish. Is there some ego that's mixed in it? Of course. Okay, yes, there is some ego that's mixed in it. You worked hard on something to help somebody or to help the shul or the kids' school, whatever it is. So you're feeling that feeling that you have, there is some of the self that's mixed in it. It could be that there's a significant percentage of ego that's mixed in it, but sof kol sof, you are able to feel even ma'at me'or ha'elyon from the very fact that you did something that's good. Ma'at me'or ha'elyon, a little bit of that light. Because that hargosha, even though it is mixed with something that's not entirely pure. But where did it come from? It came from a metzias of kedusha b'leiv, a metzias of something holy in your heart, something good that you did something to give nachas ruach to Hashem. That's where it came from. And this is the beginning. This is the beginning of that derech, of that path towards feeling more in ruchnius. Therefore, even though some svarim will say that you should try immediately to cut off, not to feel that, not to think about those positive feelings and so on. That's not the way of the Svarim HaKadoshim. But rather just the opposite. Yarech lahargiseh, to enjoy that feeling and to stay with it as long as you can. V'yachshev eseh, to be machshev it. K'chol sheyachshev eseh, kach zeh yelech v'yisra b'vez Hashem. And the more you machshev it, then the greater it will become. Of course, you still have to be careful when it comes to gaiva. That is noted in Taf Ayin Daled, in the footnote, be very careful. At some point, if the gaiva just takes over completely and fills the person, Allah says, I was masliach to understand this and to do this. These thoughts of gaiva, when a person gets carried away, and it occurs to be self-aware and to be honest and to recognize, of course, that part of this is a feeling of the ego and the self, but to be machshav the hagasha of the good thing that you did, but not to get carried away. It could cause all of this light to be extinguished if it turns into something which is purely an act of gaiva. Therefore, the ikar is, he says, Lachen miyad yizkosh Hashem baruch hu anos karach lasos chayil, to try to remember, to enjoy this good feeling, but to be conscious of the gift that you're getting from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that this is all because of Hashem, and He's the one that gave you the ability to do this, and the good, the nekudah pnimis of that good feeling is coming from that elokus that is there because of the good thing that you've done. Who is Zesha also Bamis? HaKadosh Baruch Hu, of course, is everything that comes from Hashem. Back inside, and not to listen. Be careful not to listen to the Yitzhahar. Shemaktin also. That always tries to make things, good things, to make them into nothing, to make them small, to make you feel that this is worthless, this is nothing. The Yitzhahar tells you this is not a feeling of elokus. It's just a feeling of self-satisfaction. But in truth, one needs to understand that you're experiencing a little bit of that Or HaElyon, of that higher light, Or HaKedusha, the light of Kedusha, Or HaYichud v'Ha'aras HaRatzon, Or HaYichud v'Ha'aras HaRatzon. And the Or of that Ratzon, of that highest part of who you are, that wants to do good things, that wants to do the right thing. Shemazgala b'klei ha'argasha. It's mazgala that's revealed in the kelim of these emotions, of these feelings, of these positive feelings. Achrei she'yehudi oseh shalom. Achrei she'yehudi oseh shalom. Once you did something, that's a good thing to do, and that's why that's the true reason why you're having these feelings. So, I wanted to just to share with you a few sentences from Rav Sasson in Talei Chaim, where he brings here the lashon of Rav Kook in the Eretz HaKodesh, in the first chelik of Eretz HaKodesh, and he speaks about this a little bit, but he brings some of the lashonos. I didn't have a chance just not to focus that. I forgot. So he says, I'm just reading to you some of the sweet words from Rav Kook. Just listen carefully. Kol pam shalev dofeg fika ruchanis be'emes. Anytime that the heart beats with a true spiritual beating, a beat. Kol pam shirayon chadash va'atzili nolad. Anytime that a new thought in Elokus, nolad, is born in your mind. Hareinu makshivan. We have to pay attention. We have to listen. Kol malach Hashem dofek, and you should consider this as if it's the voice of Hashem's Malach that's giving you a knack. That's how you should think of this hargosha, this feeling. Kmo kol Malach Hashem dofeg. No kesh al dal say nishmasenu. That there's a Malach of Hashem, even if it's a tiny little kol pam shalev dofeg tvicha. Anytime the heart is a little bit, there's that beat of something special in Yiddishkeit. You should think of it as a Malach. That's no kesh al dal say nishmasenu. That's banging on the doors of your neshama. Mevakesh sheniftach lo es psachenu. And the Malach is asking, open up. L'man yofia elanu b'kolul hadaro. In order for this light to be able to be able to appear in all of its beauty. Kol ma shenifkashei b'ruach yoseh meshuchrara b'leiv yoseh tahar. And the more we're able to open up for this feeling, with a spirit, that a ruach that's meshuchrara, that's liberated in the heart, that's pure. Regesh yoser esan v'neras, with a stronger feeling. B'cheshek yoser pnimi v'ritzini lahavas yoser nizga, with a deeper cheshek, and so on. Hayoser mechubrim rum kacha hamon neshamus mulutzalos eleni yafir v'yazriach benoko es chashchaseinu. So too there will be more and more neshamas from our family, from tzaddikim, that will also enter in together with that malach. And he goes on to talk about this. He has a few pages on this. He brings also from Lashon of Rav Kook in the Kavatzim. He says, Yeda inish benavshe, that a person should know. Kshagaguim helokim tovsim oso. He says, when there's a certain longing that he feels in his heart for Elokus, that means even if it's something which is tiny, it means that his neshama is speaking. Before he called it a malach, a neshama, it means that his neshama is trying to be heard. Even if it's a very faint, tiny little whisper of the neshama, it's trying to be misgala. It wants to be misgala. The kish from geula zeh. And you should know that this is a form of redemption, of geula. You should value this. You should know to value this. It's a geula that's taking place inside of you. And l'shamro b'chavod v'chiba, and to guard it with kavod and with chiba, with affection. L'fatech also b'gevura, and to develop it, and to try to develop it b'gevura, with strength. Chachmus b'seichel tov. And therefore, al yidcha adam es ha'hargashos ha'smiyos shemesaros b'nafsho. Do not push away these little hidden, tiny little hargashos that are mesaire b'nefesh. Yanich osan lesamek, allow them to become deeper, the love life, to blossom. Losif tzitzim u'prachim, to add more flowers and so on. Kamperus yasu, and fruit will grow from them. He goes on. And any time you feel any slight hisromas of ruach, any hisromas of ruach, hisromim lahakshiv keshev siach kodesh, pay close attention to this holy conversation that's taking place inside of you, this sound inside of you. Even he says, Gam terem leidas chokas kol habru, even before it's become developed or anything like that, you should know. He says, olamim mileim mishavim. There are worlds that are growing inside of you. And the neshama which is infinite, is standing there, is there. And so Rav Sasson explains that Kol Hisarus Kodesh, this is not Rav Kook, this is Rav Sasson, he says, Kol Hisarus Kodesh, I feel a dakim and hadaka. Any Hisarus of Kedusha, even the most subtle, tiny little feeling, Yechabed Ma'od, to mechabed it a lot. Yeda Kim Lamros Ziurusa, and to know that despite how small it is, Orachas Himimal, it's a guest, it's a visitor that you have, Himal, from above. It's a visitor. Your neshama is coming to pay you a visit. Me'olam Malay Havaya V'Yeshus Kodesh Kabir. This visitor is coming from a world that's filled with Kedusha. And you have this little visitor. And it's Mosheches Kav Dak. And this little visitor is pulling a kav, a line, like like a frequency that's dark, it's small. Ach Esav, but strong. Hamakashios kol muhus adam, that's attaching your very essence. Al mechuzas atzumim v'nechbadim, to mechuzas means to, like neighborhoods, to worlds that are huge. Atzumim v'nechbadim. Ashaholam kula oimed aleim. The whole universe is resting upon these worlds. Yom HaShalom b'peh malei. So if the sense that you should greet this tiny little feeling, b'peh malei. You should greet it. Yakshiv, listen, pay attention to it. V'yilmod, and to learn from it. Ad shemitoch hagoshes smuyis v'adinus elu, that from these tiny little and delicate little hagoshes, yimetapes v'arli, you'll be able to grab onto them and to climb. And misatzem b'rishumam, become stronger with the roshim that they leave. Asher yukul lefonav ba'osham b'segev kedushasam godlam ha'meshusam v'oitzem soikfam v'havyosam, to recognize the greatness of them. This is a whole parak here in the Sefer, and this Nakuda.
Can we go on with that?
Huh?
Keep reading. Just to keep
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Unbelievable.
It's a different Lashon, it's a different world.
How do we make a guest a permanent resident?
Huh?
How do we make that guest a permanent resident?
How do you make it? That's the avodah. But even the biggest tzaddikim, I mean, should say, but even for great tzaddikim, it's hard. That's what we say it says in the parsha. Ger v'soishav anachi imachem. Ger v'soishav. That there's an Indian of ger v'soishav. That a visitor and a dweller, and those are two worlds that every one of us goes to. Ger v'soishav. In the relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. When you have that visit, you should feel ki'ilu. It's a toshav. It's something that's who you are. But then it goes back and forth like that. Ger v'soishav. Ger v'soishav. But you should value that. The ikr is that when you have that visit, you shouldn't say, it's only a little bit, and it's only for 2 minutes, and so what? It's kunishvert. It's not. It's nothing. That's a mistake to have that feeling. That's the way it says in the pasuk. Is there in the siddur? Let me have the siddur because it's the beginning of the shkach. It says at the beginning of the parsha, when you come to the land, you should have Shemitah, right? That's the pasuk. Kisavo el haaretz asher ani nosen lachem b'shav zaros Shabbos l'Hashem. But the truth is that Shemitah is not going to be when you come to Eretz Yisrael. It's only going to be the 7th year. It's not going to be when we arrive. But listen to the pasuk. Kisavo, when you get there, to the land, asher nesem lachem b'shav zaros Shabbos l'Hashem. Shemitah. And then it says, Sheishonim tizrasadecha v'sheishonim tizmarkemecha v'asavdis to us. Then it says, 6 years you'll work, and 6 years together, and v'asavdis to us. And then b'shana shviz, that we understand. You'll work for 6 years on this, and then b'shana shviz, when it comes to the 7th year, Shabbos niyel haaretz, Shabbos l'Hashem. Fine. But what's the beginning of the parasha? Kisavo haaretz asher asher nisun lachem b'shav zaros Shabbos l'Hashem. So the simple pshat is it's introducing Shemitah. So it's saying that Moshe Rabbeinu is telling us, listen, Chaver, this is an Indian of Shemitah, and you know when you're going to come to Eretz Yisrael that there's this new sugi that's called Shemitah. So it's sort of an introductory puzzle. But the Talmidei Baal Shem didn't learn it like that. Of course, that's the pshat. The Talmidei Baal Shem said like this: you should know that even before you've been able to keep Shemitah, the very fact that you come to the land and you come with this mindset that you want to do this, even though you haven't yet done it, it's already a bechina of B'shav Zaros. It's already called Shemitah. The Shemitah begins already the second you come. It's not Shemitah. What do you mean? I'm working. It's not Shemitah. Shemitah is only going to be at the end. So what does it mean? Kisavo v'shav saras. The teretz is that even with that thought that I'm going to keep, at the end of this, there's going to be this time of Shabbos Lashem. The same thing during the week. When the person is working, but he has a thought of Shabbos, so then that thought, that hergish of Shabbos, creates a certain or. It's megala, a certain or of Shabbos Lashem right now. Right now on Sunday and Monday. Right now, the first year of Shemitah, while I'm standing there, it's not Shemitah, I'm standing in the field and I'm knocking and hacking and working hard and schwitzing and everything like that. It's not Shemitah. But the very fact that a person is working towards something, and that's something that you believe in, that you want, so by the Talmid of Hashem, that's already considered to be an or of Shemitah. So the truth is, on a deeper level, that tiny little rotzen and anticipation and hope for Shabbos or Shemitah is itself a malach that's coming from Hashem, like Rav Kook said, and the neshama is knocking and asking to be allowed in. Shabbos is not. It's Sunday, and Shabbos is not going to be for a long time. So what's this hargosha? This hargosha is hargosha of v'shav saha'aretz. That right now, even now, it's called Shabbos. And to be makshir that's a Shabbos-dik moment on Sunday. It's not that Shabbos is only going to be on Shabbos. Shabbos is now also not in halacha, not mitzias. And we see that in the Gemara, that there's such a musag that when a person, we've talked about this in the past, there's some seif on this. I'm talking about this strange thing where a person is lost in the desert, right? He's driving around in the desert. He loses track of time. Whatever, he wasn't well. He's lost. He doesn't know what day of the week it is. So he should count 6 days and make Shabbos. So there's a whole sugya. What does it mean? Does he make kiddush with Shem Hashem? Does he make havdalah? What's going on? What does he do? Deraisa is derabbanan, but he should stay away from the malachas deraisa. He should make that into a Shabbos dik day, and he stays away from doing malachas. At least malachas deraisa for sure. To stay away from doing malachas and to stay in that place and so on. It's a bechin of Shabbos. It's hayom yom echad, yom rishon Shabbos, yom sheni Shabbos. It's a bechin of Shabbos. Then that's from this moment already. There's an inyan of Shabbos. Even though the chances are only 1 in 7 that it's really Shabbos. What's the chances of this being Shabbos? And he's standing over there with L'chad Daidi. It's Tuesday. And it's L'chad Daidi. And singing L'chad Daidi. And so, again, it'd be a certain type of a Jew would laugh at that this is total nonsense because according to the statistics, this is not Shabbos. So this is not Shabbos. So it's time you're playing a game. But the Gemara says this is not a game. The Gemara says this is something very, very serious. Your L'chad Daidi is a bechin of Shabbos. Even though it's most likely Tuesday or Wednesday, but it's a bechin of Shabbos. It's a bechin of Shabbos. Ad kedei kach is there this inyan of that aura of the neshama that wants to make its way into a person's life. So Shabbos, so then you could say the same thing. If you be a certain type of a person, you would say, "Oh, the only reason that I'm longing for Shabbos right now is because I hate my work." Or I'm just tired, or I just the only reason I want Shabbos is because I could sleep more, or I enjoy a good piece of kugel and kishka or something. So, and the HR comes and says such things. This has nothing to do with Shabbos. So it could be that part of that gagua has to do with kugel and sleeping. It could be, which is no averi either. It could be that it has to do with that, but the pnimis is in the kudah of Shabbos. And when a person has such a feeling on a Sunday or Monday, you should say to it, Good Shabbos. Say Good Shabbos. Welcome. Boi kala. Welcome Shabbos. I'm so happy that Shabbos paid me a visit on a Tuesday. This is Gavaldi. Shabbos. Again, and others from the thing, there'll be an Indian like this to make fun of this. And this is shtuyot. What do you think? Shabbos, not Shabbos. Shabbos. But that's the thing that we're learning, to be makshir that as a visit from the other world, from the higher world. That's a visit of Shabbos, that you have the schus that Shabbos has come to pay you a little bit of a visit here in the middle of the week. Even if it's a tiny little twinge of a longing for Shabbos, a tiny little bit of a feeling of that. It means that the Or of Shabbos is coming to see you. And a person should be machshav that. Should be machshav, to be makabel it, to be machshav it, and to rejoice with it, and so on. And it's an opportunity to ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu to help me that to feel more. And when Shabbos comes, I should be machshav Shabbos more. Not only to anticipate, but when Shabbos actually is here, that I should greet her properly, and I should be mechaber her properly, and I should guard all the halachas of Shabbos in a proper way, and so on. Page Reish Ayin Aleph, Reish Vav. B'tzarach ladaz. The person should know. She'es chazkus ha'hargosha tluya v'hasmadas ha'hargoshas. That if you want this to become stronger, this hargosha to be stronger, it depends on following through. Hasmadas hargoshas. Like it brings a very good moshel. If you look in Tuf Ayin Hey, he says, "Kamo shnei chaveim shenifgoshim harbe." You have two friends that they see each other a lot. B'ahava rabba, with great love, these two friends love each other. Avalim einam nifgoshim. But if they don't really see, if they don't have a chance to see each other, to at least communicate with each other, as I rochak min ha'ayin, rochak min ha'leiv. There's an expression in English as well that if it's far from the eye, it's far from the heart. There's such an expression that it's not on your radar. So nechleshes ahava. Even though, of course, you miss the person and you might think of that person from time to time, but it's. If you have the opportunity to see that person, to spend some time together, that's mechazek the ahava. It's the same thing when it comes to that malach that visits. It's the same thing that comes to that feeling, that hargosha that a person has. But when you have that hargosha, it's important to try to do what you can to stay with it, to spend more time with it. Back on top of kuchol sheyarber lahargish, and the more you're able to feel, what you're able to, so that hargosha becomes stronger instead of just allowing the feeling to pass. Because very often a person in that whole world of feelings, of emotions, it's just, it comes and it goes. We're not used to necessarily working on it. If it's something that came, it came and it left. But that's not necessarily true. If it's there, then again, you machshav it and you try to think about it, and you try to stay with it, and you try to be mechabed it. The same way that if you have somebody that you love came to visit, you enjoy every minute, and you try to extend the visit. You try to extend the time that person spends with you. Spend more time together. And in that way, that strengthens the connection between the two of you. Between you and that hargosha, that malach. Ad sheikvar tovei love. So over time, you will discover, you will see that hargosha comes to you, l'lo mamach, without effort on your part. It begins to become more of a regular visitor. The more welcome that hargosha is in you, the more it begins to visit. It comes in a stronger way. Befrat, when a person is in the midst of this feeling of Hashem's presence, the more a person seeks this out and asks more and more, Aye mekom kavod, aye, like in Rabbi Nachman's Torah, aye mekom kavod, aye. Where are you, Hashem? Aye mekom kavod, medabri imo. You take that moment to speak to him, and to think about him. Not just a passing appearance of Hashem, but to ask for more and to stay with you longer, to spend some more time with you, and to spend some time talking to. And to be misboinin, to pay close attention to this presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. As I kechol shemar belahargish kach hargosha tigdov v'tischazik b'rachim v'zbach. So the more time you spend with this, the stronger the feeling will become. He gives an example, Tafai and Vav. When a person comes to daven, he's burning ma'at. When a person goes to shul to daven, take a second to think. I'm coming to this place, and the Shechina is here. At shemagish es l'fachas b'hargoshas makif shezem mokim shashchina kedosh shochenes. But at least to feel it in a way that's a makif, that this is a place where the Shechina is shochenes. I'm now in a place of Hashvaras Hashchina. Hashem is of course everywhere, but there's an additional or of Hashvaras Hashchina because I'm now in a Makom Kodesh. I'm in a shul, and to stop for a second to think about this. I'm now entering into a place of Hashvaras Hashchina, and obviously, the more that a person thinks about that, tries to stay on that thought that this is a place of Hashvaras Hashchina, so the more of an effect it will have upon him. Back inside. Therefore, it's important to be machshav, even the tiniest little hagosha, and not to consider it, not to wave it off as being some dimyan, some imagination. There's a dimyan. That's another dimyan that a person has. Sometimes you're feeling that we see that in certain books and certain svarim of a different type, so that you'll find in those svarim that it will say that when you have this hagosha of elokus, it's a dimyan. The reason that you're feeling this is because you got a raise or something, or something good happened in your life. Somebody paid you a compliment. So now you made a bracha, or you benched, somebody paid you a compliment, so now you're making a bracha, and with the bracha you're feeling more of a connection to Hashem. So those svarim will say, this has nothing to do with God, this has nothing to do with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, this is just you got a compliment, so you're feeling good. So because you're feeling good, you had some success at something, so this feeling of a connection to Hashem, or whatever this feeling of Elokus, it's just a dimyan, it's not imagination. It's just a dimyan. It's not real at all. It's just a dimyan. Not chalila to have such thoughts. It doesn't make a difference. Many times over the years I've mentioned the marshal that we have from the Pizetz, where he writes how because the Pizetz, the Rebbe is very, very, very with this Indian of developing these hagashas. And this farm are a lot in this farm. All of you have learned in this farm that there's a tremendous amount of work in this whole avodah of hagasha in the Pizetz and Svarm. So he gives a mashal of a person who's in jail, and his father is allowed to visit him like once a month or something. He's allowed to visit him. Just that's the rule. For 5 minutes, his father's allowed to come visit him in his cell. So the Rebbe says that the father comes and they let him into the cell. They tell him 5 minutes, and the father comes in there and he starts to talk about. He takes out a few papers and starts to talk about something with the legal situation. Doesn't give him a hug, doesn't give him a kiss, doesn't say I love you, doesn't say I miss you. Just says I have 5 minutes. Let's talk business. So the Pizesna says that the father's a shaita. What kind of a father is that? Of course he might have to get to something about the case, but the father is a shaita. Because the Pizesna says that once the cell door is open, you have to take advantage of that, and you have to give your son a hug. If the door is open, it doesn't make a difference who opened it. The Pizesna says who opened it. Some bushka, some anti-Semite, some guard opened the door. It doesn't make a difference how the door was open and who opened it. The Metzias is it's open, and if it's open, go for it. That's what the Rebbe says. Same thing when it comes to Avodas Hashem. So who opened up your heart? So it could be that your heart was open because somebody paid you a compliment, right? Or your team won, whatever, color war, or whatever it is that you waste your time doing with these things. So your team won. So your team won. So chanarishkeit. So you have a whole simchas chaim because these 9 mushchasim won over the other 9 mushchasim. So you whatever or five whatever. I don't know how many are in football. I don't remember. How many on a football team? 11. Like the Sammanim and the Ketairas. So it doesn't make a difference. It doesn't make a difference how your heart opened. It doesn't make a difference how your heart opened. So there you are, you're cheering because your team won, and then you suddenly shift to thank you, Hashem. So all the Bali Musa are going to start throwing apples at you. That this is what's that to do with Hashem? There's some stupidity, like from when you're a little boy, that you're jumping up and down, cheering for this nonsense. So this is Avodas Hashem. So the Pizesna is saying it's a nafki. So the giants opened up your heart. So your heart is open. It's a nafki. So use that as a moment to say thank you, Hashem. Doesn't make a difference how your heart opened. It's okay. That's. Well, the mice that I've mentioned over the years, there was which one of the tzaddikim was it? I think maybe it's the Rebbe Baruch Meshbitzer, but I'm not sure. I think it was Baruch Meshbitzer. That there was Simchas Torah, and there was a yid that was standing on, not an old person who couldn't dance. It was a healthy young guy. He was standing on the side, looking in a sefer, sitting, whatever, and the rest of the island was dancing Simchas Torah. And there's yid, you always have yid like that. And I'm not saying a person rests and takes a break, but he was like a Marish Charidika type, and he's standing there on the type, catching up on the parish or something during Hakafis. He's very, very frum, and he has to do parish or whatever, because it's tight. It's a tight, parish. It's hard that time. So he's especially it's gracious, right? So he's catching. He must make sure he's able to be Ma'aveh Sadrim, and he's standing on the side. So the Rebbe Baruch, I think it's Rebbe Baruch, could be a different tzaddik, either Rebbe. Huh? From who? Levi Yisrael. Okay, fine. Either one. So we're okay with either one. So either the Abderov or the Rebbe Baruch. Meshbitz, one of the big tzaddikim went over to this Jew, and he said to him, Yankel, what are you standing here? It's Hakafis. What's the matter with you? So the fellow says to the Rebbe, listen, Rebbe, today's Simchas Torah. That's a whole big thing. I know who I am, and I know that tomorrow I'm going to be back to the same, stupidities and narishkeit and my inyanim. I know that. So what am I going to make a whole week over here? Sisu the simple. What am I doing a whole? So it says that the Rebbe gave him a patch, and he said to him, that you have. Imagine that the Jewish boys that were taken away, which is very common, they were taken away by the Goyim and put into jail for ransom, right, to collect. So the Goyim wanted to take ransom for these boys. And they're all day long, they're locked up in these dark, horrible cells. And for every day, for like a half hour or whatever, a few minutes, they let the guys come out and to walk around in the compound, a little bit to get some air and to walk around. So the Rebbe said, during those few minutes, there are mothers and fathers that are on the rooftops, and on the trees, waving and to see their sons outside. They're able to wave and to give a scream and to throw a kiss. So the Rebbe said to this yid, that it could very well be that tomorrow you're going to be back in the cell, back in jail, in that jail of whatever it is you're in. It could be tomorrow you'll be back in jail. But there are a few minutes of Simchas Torah where we're able to be outside of that jail. And you have to know that the Shechina Kadosha, she's standing on the roof and she's standing on the tree. And she has such nachs to see one of her children being free for a few minutes in the air, being outside for a few minutes, being away from that jail for a few minutes to being outside. How the Shechina is machshav those few minutes of being free. So the Shechina Kadosh is machshav that, because Baruch Hu is machshav that. If the father or the mother are machshav that, so then the person himself has to be machshav those few moments of clarity, a few moments of freedom. even if you're able to learn that night, whatever is only a little bit. Maybe you could have done more learning if you only learned a little bit. So again, the Yetzirah comes and says that you shouldn't be machshav that little bit of learning at all. And it could be that when you were growing up, you heard 1,000 talks from different teachers from Byam that said that what kind of a lo yitzlach are you? You only learned for 10 minutes. Why could you learn for an hour or for 2 hours? What's the matter with you? That means that you're not machshav Torah. The Torah is meaningless to you. Because if the Torah meant something to you, you would have said, no, you would have been learning for another hour or two, and you're not machshav the Torah. And the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh comes along and says, it's gewaldige inyan that you learned for 10 minutes. That doesn't mean to settle with that. It means that if you're machshav and you're miyaker those 10 minutes, when there's something that's dear to you, and there's a guest that you appreciate and that you welcome with simcha, with joy, then you'll see that over time the guest will spend more time with you. As opposed to you hate this person, you don't want this person. I know that you really hate Torah, and the reason that you're not learning more is because the truth is you don't really care for Torah. And if you look deeply into your heart, into your mind, you will see that you don't want Torah. And the only reason you learn is because you feel guilty, so you open the Sefer for a few minutes. You don't really care about Torah. And this mahalach, that speech, 2,422, Sichas Musa. It's just the opposite. The more you're miyakeh, the more you're machshav that visitor. Could the visitor have stayed longer? Did you have the strength to learn for another half hour? Yeah, probably did. That's probably true. No, so what? So you learned for 10 minutes. Adarabah, you should be machshav those 10 minutes out of the jail. Those are 10 minutes that you spent in the air, in the sunlight, and to be machshav that. And then you will see that the more you're machshav those moments, the time begins to grow, and you begin to spend more time outside of the jail. You're machshav that metzias of the time that you have with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. That's why he says, L'chein therefore, choshuv lahachshiv afilu agosha dakman adaka v'lachshav shezeh dimyon. Okay, dezeh yuchal lasek oid v'oid v'yelech v'yisraba ad ki godel ma'oid becomes more and more. V'zagam yeh Yosef Borlo shezeh amiti. And then you'll begin to see more and more shezeh amiti, that this is really what you want. This is really what's important to you. That this is great learning. It's great learning. It's great being in the sunlight. Look inside Tafai Zayin. It's the way the Yetzirah and all of his little helpers, that when he sees a person coming into a little bit of dvekus of some sort of connection to Hashem, Dimyonis. It's just an imagination. It's not really anything about Hashem over here. Because by the Yetzirah, something that you can't see with your eyes is not real. Anything that's not part of the world, they say it's a dimyon. It's just an imagination. And that's the way the dimyon works with dreams and with games and so on, whatever. Because a person sleeps, dreams when he's sleeping. But a person who mixes up his dream with reality, it's one thing to dream when you're sleeping, it's another thing to dream when you're awake, and to have a dimyon. Then the world looks at such a person as if he's a mishigan. And a person who calls feelings of kedusha imagination, stam, dimyonis, zebeglal shaladaito, hametzias hakovaz he. It's because this person thinks that the only true mitzvah is that which you see with your eyes. Even though the truth is that the dreams of a person are responsible for making the biggest things that exist in the world. The dreams of a person. Like the Panabizhar famously said, that I dream of it. It's true, I'm dreaming. When he wanted to make the whole malchus of the yeshiva, they said, someone told me, Rebbe, you're dreaming. He said, yeah, I know, but I dream with my eyes open. That's how I dream with my eyes open. That. And a dimyon, so others say, it's a dimyon. It's never going to have such a thing. It can't be. Because to those people, the only thing that's real is something that you could see. And the Mela, tchushas l'davar she'ena nira ba'ayin, nechshav es lo l'dimyon. So if it's something, a feeling of something you can't see, these people say, you can't, it's not real. It's not something which is real. You do something, you this, that's real. But don't tell me some feeling of some hagosha. That's other mammon. Shamaki b'mitzias Hashem, but a mammon who believes in the mitzias of Hashem. Afshu eno nira b'nai, believes in Hashem's mitzias, even though you can't see Hashem. As I asked though, mitzias Hashem is also chelik me'mitzias. For that person, Hashem's presence is real. Not only that, other of it, the ikar mitzias. It's the ikar mitzias is Hashem's presence. Therefore, any tchush, any feeling that the person has of kedusha, shamagish is a chelik, a ruchni shredo, feel something of the ruchnis of creation. There, shem tchush is emes. It's true. Machshev kol hagasha the kedusha, to be machshev anything. But habi pamim other rabbi, mashenir beinayim kami. Sometimes just the opposite. That which looks to you like it's something which is so real, like the football game, and all the guys jumping up and down who just won the Super Bowl or something, and this looks to you like the most important and real thing in the world. Right? Dimions. That's not. All dimyonis. It's all dimyonis. L'mashal nirul adam sha'aver the panosa shavadosa he shavilo kesef. You believe, you think that because you work so hard, that's how come you made this money, and that's and you're holding the check. So this seems to be so real, but that thought that this is due to your hard work it's a dimyon, because everything comes from Hashem. The Chazal Gilul is a dimyon. The Hainish is a rak nirakach. Well, the Em is a lokach. V'shtadlis en mu'ila klum. The shtadlis is nothing. Kol in yoni rak she'adam tzarech la'achin kli sh'vayuchel eslabis ha-shefa is just about preparing a kli to receive the shefa, and that shefa is something which is a gift that comes from Baruch. So that which you think is most real, the emes is that it's a dimyon, and that which the Yetzer Hara says are dimyonis are the biggest mitzias that you have in your life, which is mitzias Hashem.